Welcome, Degens, far and wide, to another edition of the Degen Docs. We're talking about none other than the AFC West today, folks. That's right. We're continuing with our division season preview. We're talking free agency team breakdowns. We're talking expert injury analysis, fantasy football takes, and all the actionable, of course, best bets. So we are now in episode number 7 now. We have 7 of 8. We've got 2 more divisions to go to get you ready for training camp, get you ready for the 2024 season. We are the Degen Docs. We appreciate you hanging out with us. Cheers, folks, and here's to talking football. The AFC West edition of the Degen Docs on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. You can win up to 325 times your entry with their Pick 8. Sign up with promo code SGPNDOC to claim your special pick, plus a first-time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code SGPNDOC, all caps, all one word. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Build your own betting model using their AI betting engine. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. All right, folks, I'm your host, the OG Degen Doc, and I am joined by my co-host, my brother in degeneracy, Derek Bennett, Mr. Professor Locks himself. How are we doing today, brother?
We're doing well, not doing too shabby on this Saturday afternoon that we're recording this AFC West edition of all of our previews. What says you? What's been going on this week?
Well, yeah, like we said here, 13 July is the date we're recording this. Actually, the first start of training camp. So we're going to pull up the training camp schedule in a second. But it officially started today with the Baltimore Rookies. And look, what's been going on with me, man? You know, I've been substituting the lack of American football, real football, with football. I'm telling you, man, I've been talking about my little soccer journey. And let's just, for all you non-believers out there, let's just pull something up here that I think everybody needs to be aware of. So to set the scene, Copa America, you've got, North America, Central America, South America, all have theirs. Same time the European Championships are going on. You had the semifinals. You had Uruguay versus Colombia. Very big. They played it in the Panther Stadium. There was 70,000 something. I actually had a patient who was at the game. But look at what happened here. Some of the Uruguayan players decided they lost. Colombia won 1-0. And they decided to tell Ron Artest to hold my beer. Let's see how this played out.
Of Uruguayan players going into the stands and interacting, if you will, with Colombian supporters.
Who says football isn't a contact sport?
I mean, look at we have players just full on throwing haymakers in the stands, folks.
There we go.
I mean, I thought that was something to see. You do not see that very often. I thought I was at a hockey game for some reason, but apparently the story was that Colombian fans were that's where the families were, and they were harassing the families, so the players were defending them. Like I said, I had someone who went to the game, and he had some videos on his phone, and it looked like some Uruguay fans. But they were throwing beers, and he was like, it's funny because with that, especially Hispanic countries, when they play soccer, like it's like the whole country, like that is their sport. Right. The passion and everything. So he was like, yeah, beer bottles were flying, but like that's normal. And I was like, okay. So apparently it gets pretty wild there, but yeah, definitely need to bump the security up for the World Cup in 2026. But
definitely, yeah. So you said training camp starts today with Baltimore rookies?
Yes. Let's go ahead.
Why does Baltimore get a little leg up with getting their rookies to camp sooner rather than later? Baltimore doesn't need any more help. They're okay as it is. They're fine.
Yeah, no, this is the schedule here. Most teams, it looks like they're coming around, at least their vets are coming around 20th, 23rd. And that's with our goal to get all these previews out to you guys. We're releasing through a week. By the time you see this, we'll have had the 6 before. We'll have blown through the NFC, then it was the South and the East of the AFC, and this is the second to last. So hopefully this will be coming out actually. Yeah, this episode should be coming out around the 22nd, I believe. So right before most teams kick off training camp. So we're going to get you all the team previews. And then after that, it's going to be about updates and then getting ready for actual football and talking about, really week one and start honing in. So super excited there. But yeah, Baltimore 3 days earlier than any other team. And, I can't imagine they're going to be doing too much today, but it is exciting. Football is officially back. Speaking of football, I was just, getting ready for this episode here, and I was, looking up some things, and I was just on the couch, and I look up and I hear something about the Dallas Cowboys. And at first, that's like a curse word in this household. So I was a little taken aback, but the wife is actually watching the Dallas Cowboys cheerleader Netflix that you were talking about. Very unsolicited, all on her own. So I'm, I guess if there's one Cowboys thing we'll allow that in the house, I guess we can allow that on the TV.
That's awesome that Jen is partaking in some football nuances, I guess you could say.
I think she's getting jacked for the season too, man.
I think so.
Family affair.
Well, I told you before we started recording, I just watched the first episode of Receiver on Netflix, and so far so good. It's kind of holding right up there with quarterback. It was kind of interesting at the very beginning. Peyton starts his stuff. How quarterback's best friend is some sort of speedy wide receiver that has toes on the sideline, can run every route and all this stuff. And then Randy Moss just jumps up and hold the phone. Peyton, you ran through the quarterback shit. Let me take care of this. And
there
then
you go.
He starts running through some stuff, but it's been good so far.
No, it's good.
Some definitely.
How many episodes out now?
I'm not entirely sure. Like I said, I just started
the first
episode 1 today, but so far so good.
Check that one out. Yeah, quarterback was a good series. I like that more than the Hard Knocks stuff. I know the Giants were kind of the Hard Knocks team, so I've seen clips, but it seems very off-season to the point it's like front office and stuff. Look, we told you how we feel here, folks, at least on this show. I don't need to hear about Benedict Barkley anymore. So I heard the phone call when he said he was going to call and give the Giants a chance to match the offer. He didn't want to be a Giant. As far as I'm concerned, never was a Giant. Who's Saquon Barkley? All I know is Benedict. So he can stay there in dirty, dirty Philadelphia, and we're going to just continue to move on. All right, let's kick this damn thing off. Again, we are talking about none other than the AFC West.
Out to the left side.
Out to the West Coast, baby. And we are starting with the Los Angeles Chargers. And they were a Chargers team that just went 5-12 last year. And, I think this is one of the most interesting teams just off the jump, right? I'm very kind of intrigued to see what this team looks like and how this presents there. But let's talk about the losses and additions, go through free agency real quick. Let's make sure we orient ourselves as we always like to do. Starting with those losses, we have Austin Eckler heading over to the Commandos. Joshua Kelly is gone. Big hits at the wide receiver room. Two top wide receivers, really, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. Allen's in Chicago. Williams now with the Jets. Terrell Everett also gone. Starting center Corey Linsley, who we'll talk about, is gone. And a couple linebackers there in Murray and Kendricks, who were starters for this team. Now, their linebackers have been absolutely awful the past 6 years. So is that really a loss? Time will tell. And then a lot of additions, a lot of turnover. Obviously, the running back room looks completely different. You move two guys out, you got to bring two in. And they went over to Baltimore and grabbed both those running backs, Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. They picked up DJ Chark from Carolina. Tight ends, Will Dissly and Hayden Hurst, which will be an interesting conversation to see who really is the starter. And then on the defensive side, you got Perriman, Fulton. I really like the Joe Alt pick out of offensive tackle there out of Notre Dame. Ladd McConkey and Junior Colson, also some decent picks out of Michigan and Georgia. What are the first takeaways? What are you thinking? A lot of moves. What are we thinking about the LA Chargers this year?
A lot of moves, and mostly it seems like mostly on the offensive side of the ball. Like you said, I think Joe Alt was like the most Jim Harbaugh pick of all time. With Jim Harbaugh coming out to LA, he's going to want to pound the rock. He's going to want to hand the ball off to one of those running backs 30, 35, 40 times a game. And so bolstering that offensive line was definitely needed. You know, they already had a couple decent pieces, but bringing in a couple new faces as well is probably good. The strange thing is, like you said, they lost a couple stud wide receivers in Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. And what did they do? They really didn't replace those
Lad
guys.
McConkey, I guess.
Rod McConkey, you know,
I mean, but I guess if they're gonna run the ball 40 times, who the hell needs wide receivers?
Well,
Huh?
this is true. This is true. I mean, we'll kind of test that theory out. But you also bring in Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, who, I mean,
Yep.
we'll talk about those guys here in a little bit as well. But like Gus Bus was that in Baltimore last year to a certain extent, but like he's not a really big play guy. He's not going to be the one to carry the ball 20, 25 times a game, most likely. And J.K. Dobbins is coming off an ACL tear and an Achilles tear.
Yeah.
So, you know,
I mean, really, especially Gus Edwards, neither of them have shown the ability to be an every down back and stay healthy or produce at the same level, right? Gus Edwards has kind of always been that change of pace guy. I'm a big Gus Bus fan. Don't get me wrong. But, you know, he went from a really good situation in Baltimore to probably a not so good situation in LA. So it's hard to project him to have this massive breakout year. But we will talk about that. And first, let's talk about this injuries. And we're going to start off with the guy who's going to be handing them the ball. And that's Justin Herbert. He picked up a finger fracture in December of last year. You know, I think he broke it twice last year. He got a pin, and then eventually they shut him down and let Easton Stick take it because they were god awful. So the 10th of December, it's about a 2 to 3 month expected recovery timeline. Again, we've talked about fractures, bones. You just got to let that bone heal. Got to make sure it's healing correctly, especially with fingers, because you know they got to make sure they plate it and everything, get it to where it needs to be, pin it if needed. But I don't have any concerns with him as far as week one. He's got, what are we looking at, like 8 or 9 months of recovery timeline. So there's nothing really concerning here. But hey, man, he needs his finger if he's going to be just halfback guy ref.
This is Justin Herbert.
Harbaugh said he's good to go, man. That's all I need, brother.
Hey, as long as you know, if he ended up getting some pins in there, like, you know, one of those pins isn't rubbing on the ball as he's handing it off 50 times a game, he'll be fine. I'm not too worried at all.
Not too worried there.
Like we were talking about earlier, I think just the running back injury health is the big topic when it comes to
we'll breeze through this next one here. Offensive line, starting center Corey Linsley. Tough situation. Really picked up some heart issues, non-life threatening, but also, you know, not something that you want to play with, right? Kind of came out of nowhere. You know, he got it early last season, was difficult for him to come back. Kind of one of those things where I was reading up on it, and it was basically like you could play, but you're kind of running a risk. And at that point, like, you know, I think everybody, you know, we love football, but it's hard to, you know, quality of life is a little bit more important. You don't want to mess with something like that. So I think he's making the right decision. It's tough to definitely hang up the cleats, but that's what he's doing. It looks like he's going to retire. You know, they restructured his contracts. All signs point to him retiring. So he was a pretty solid center. So they will have to replace him. Sure. And then the running backs is really what we want to talk about here. You mentioned it. J.K. Dobbins coming off an Achilles tear. Week one, he got injured. He was coming off an ACL, although that really kind of massive injury the year before, where it was that ACL, hamstring tear, PCL, you know, where he really had like a knee reconstruction. So there was optimism last year, and then he goes and picks up an Achilles tear, which again, Achilles tendon connects your calf muscles to your heel. Full tear requires season-ending surgery. 10 to 12 month recovery process typically really hits wide receivers and running backs pretty hard as far as getting back. Usually see a dip in production. Now, he did injure himself in week one, so he's got about 12 months of recovery. But what are you thinking with J.K. Dobbins?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about a few of these, you know, Achilles tears for whatever reason. Like the 2023 season was like the year of the Achilles in the NFL. You know, with a lot of big name guys rupturing their Achilles. But the two main ones that we've been talking about are Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers. Both are quarterbacks who don't move around a ton in the pocket at this point in their careers.
Yep.
J.K. Dobbins, obviously a different position, being a running back, also coming off of some other major injuries. I am more concerned with him. coming off of that Achilles tear. Like you said, it's kind of right around that timeline as far as week 1 goes.
Yeah.
I think he starts pretty slow. I think he might get some carries those first couple weeks. It's kind of hard to say. They may, especially with him switching teams amongst this as well, they may be a little bit more cautious with him. It's hard to really say. But at the end of the day, whether he's playing week 1, week 2 or not, like, I think it's going to be a slow process to get him back into football shape, if you will. He really hasn't played in 2 years.
Yeah, no, I mean, shocker, breaking news, but the longer time you don't play football, you do not get better at football, right?
Yeah,
We've seen it with Deshaun Watson. We've seen it time and time again. I mean, Michael Thomas, these are guys who were producing, and JK definitely showed potential. But, he had really one good year, and that was really it. So it's not like he was like this kind of guy who was producing in and out. So it's really hard to trust him. And right now he comes in as RB2 behind Gus Edwards, who picked up apparently an undisclosed minor injury. They're expecting him to be ready for training camp. So there's a couple guys we've talked about, a decent amount throughout these previews where, this is one we just need to see. Right now there's no red flags. There's nothing crazy, but we do need to see how he's looking when he's returning, because training camp is really when, you pick something up in training camp, now we start talking about what can it affect the season here. We're less than 2 months out. So this is at the point where now it starts to talk about, all right, week 1, like, how are we looking for week 1? So again, Gus Edwards, we can't really speak too much about it. We're not going to speculate a ton because we don't have a lot of info on it, but the expectation is he should be ready for training camp. So we will see. Going into that, why don't we talk about, so we got Gus Edwards at RB30 and J.K. Dobbins at RB51. Who would you rather have right now?
That's tough. Like I said, I think Gus Edwards is going to be kind of that bell cow at the beginning of the season, but at the same time, like, I don't know if he's going to be that guy for 16, 17 weeks. I think J.K. Dobbins probably has a little bit more pop, or at least he did, looking back a couple years. With him being at running back, what would you say, 50, 51, something like 51, that?
51, yeah, Dobbins,
yeah. I mean, he might be like a free piece come round 12, 13, something like that. So I think he would probably be the route I would go, just kind of worth a flyer at the end of the draft before I pick a kicker. But I, as much as Jim Harbaugh likes to run the ball, it's kind of it's tough, dude.
Yeah, it's kind of a crapshoot back there, man. Yeah. I mean, people are talking about the Vidal kid, the rookie, and he had some productive years in college, but a 6th-round pick is going to be tough for him to kind of work his way up that way. We'll see, but I just think it's going to be a little bit mucky, kind of an ugly situation back there where, they're kind of splitting carries. And like you said, we talked about Dobbins starting slower. Now Dobbins is much cheaper, but I wanna back Edwards here and think he's gonna send to RB1 numbers, but I just can't see it. I think he was in a much better situation in Baltimore, and he never really just proved consistently that he can be the lead guy. So I do think that they run the ball, but I do think it's almost like a little bit of a Denver situation last year where you were getting, well, even less so, where these guys are really just kind of splitting carries, and then you're mixing in the rookie in there and things like that.
And at the same time, like, even with Edwards in Baltimore, like, you had the threat of Lamar Jackson. You also had some receiving threats out there.
Had a great offensive line.
Exactly. I mean, the Chargers really don't have those receiving options. I mean, Josh Palmer is by far the most proven at this point. Quentin Johnston has been a shell of a 1st-round pick.
Yep.
And who knows what Ladd McConkey's going to give you? In his rookie year. So.
Yeah, speaking of those wide receivers, I think, some of the biggest concerns with this team, one of them is that wide receiver room. The other is that rush defense, which we'll talk about a little bit. But talking about those wide receivers, let's look over the fantasy side. Josh Palmer, wide receiver 58. Ladd McConkey, wide receiver 50. Quentin Johnston, wide receiver 65. Yeah, the first thing that jumps out to me is I think it's crazy that Ladd McConkey is going 8 spots, 8 wide receivers better than Josh Palmer, right? So Joshua Palmer was the second leading receiver on this team, and the first leading receiver, Keenan Allen, is no longer with the team. So he's the top returning wide receiver. He's been there for a couple of years. He only played 11 games, and he had just under 600 yards. I think this will start getting into some of our bets here, but I think it's insane that Palmer is going after Ladd McConkey. I know people love rookies and just kind of the unknown of we've never seen them, so maybe we can project them a little bit higher, but I think that's absurd. I don't think Ladd McConkey, I mean, let's be honest, he struggled to stay on the field in Georgia in college, right?
I was just going to say, I may be wrong on this, but, he was kind of in and out last season down in Athens. He
back injury, low back injury,
and some things that are just kind of concerning for a 21, 22-year-old athlete in terms of the back kind of stuff and whatnot. So
absolutely. Anyway. And then Quentin Johnson, I just think I want no part. I didn't want any part of him last year, and you can save that for the bees, man. That is not for me. So I just he had all the opportunity in the world last year, and it just never came together. So to tell me that a guy like DJ Chark or even the Jerry Rice's kid out of USC, Brendan Rice, if he gets his spot taken, I wouldn't. I mean, you can only give the kid so many options, right? I know you spent good draft capital on him, but I just don't see it with Quentin Johnson. All right, let's talk about the favorite part here, the actionable information, the best bets. So I will let you kick it off, my friend. This is the LA Chargers team that was 5-12 last year. Their win total on the season is 8.5, and the over is juiced at -155, and the under is +130. So what say you? What is your best bet for this team?
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people are looking really highly of the LA Chargers. Now, whether that is the Jim Harbaugh effect or, just what they did in the offseason, it's kind of hard to say. I think bringing in Jim Harbaugh was by far the biggest head coaching pickup, across the NFL. And yes, he has had a stint in the NFL before, and he had a ton of success. I think his first year out in San Francisco back in 2011, 2012, whenever that was, he was 13-3. I don't see that happening in the AFC West. Like the AFC as a conference is stacked compared to the NFC, in my opinion. So with that being said, and this isn't just the AFC, but the NFC as well, I don't see any team that finished last in their division going and winning the division. I don't see any worst to first this year, which is kind of unusual. Usually there is one that is able to do that. The only one that I think has a chance is Cincinnati, and that's really based on Joe Burrow's health. So I'm going to stick with no team going worst to first at +260.
Okay. You're starting to sound spicy there. All right. I'm racking my brain here.
Yeah. So the Chargers, people are high on them. I am not so much. But I do like Josh Palmer's over 700.5 receiving yards. Like we just talked about, their receiving room has had some major changes. He's by far the most proven receiver coming back. So I do like him to be kind of that leading wide receiver in that room. So over 700.5 receiving yards at -110.
Yeah. I was just taking a look at, some of the teams there.
Yeah.
I think, maybe the Cardinals or the Bengals are really kind of what that's going to turn into. But you still got San Francisco up there. We did our NFC West preview. We differ on what we think over there, but we'll let you go back and look at that. So, full disclosure, like we talk about, we do not share our bets before because we want to just kind of be independent and kind of see how it is. And sometimes we're on the same page, and sometimes we are in left field. But this is one that looks like we're pretty aligned on here. So I also have Palmer over 700.5 receiving yards at -115. We talked about it. He's the lead returning receiver to this team. I know Harbaugh wants to run the ball, but you got Justin Herbert. You got Palmer, who's shown flashes. Man, he's had multiple games over 100 yards last season. I think he had 2 in 11 games. I think he's someone that actually has real potential. I think he's clearly the best wide receiver in that room. So I'm going to co-sign that one. And then we talked about it, but I think this Chargers team I don't think they're 3 wins better than they were last year. I don't see where they got better. I don't even know if they got better, period. I think your best assets were your wide receivers in Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, and and Eckler out of the backfield, and all those guys are gone. Right?
Yep.
Now we bring in 2 aging running backs that have struggled to stay healthy and consistently produce. We've brought in a rookie wide receiver that has struggled to stay on the field. I like the Joe Alt pick, but their rush defense was not good. It's not been good, and they've shown me nothing that tells me they're going to improve it. Right? I like Junior Colson out of Michigan. I think he's a good player. He's a tackling machine. I get it. But their defensive line is still not that impressive. Can Joey Bosa stay healthy? He's just another year older. You got Morgan Fox, Atito Agbonia, and Puna Ford. None of those guys really strike any fear in my heart. And you got Denzel Perriman has kind of been a journeyman himself. I don't think that front 7 is really going to be able to stop the run again. So we're going to talk about it, but you got teams like the Raiders in this division who love to run the ball. You've got the Chiefs with Pacheco who can run the ball. You've got the Broncos with Williams, P. Ryan, and McLaughlin who want to run the ball. So I think they're going to struggle. Give me under 8.5 at plus 130. I think that's an absolute steal. I have no idea how they're expected to be 3.5 wins better than last year. Like, the best thing they did was get Jim Harbaugh, which long term, I really like that. It's a great hire, but come on, what are we doing? Year 1? And then I'm also going to double down and go under 6.5 wins at plus 370. I think they could be a 5 or 6 win team again. They're in a tough division. They're in the AFC, and I just frankly don't think they got much better. So I was super shocked at this number, and I can't believe it's juiced so high to the over 8.5. I guess there's a lot of expectations there. Rookie head coach, I guess rookie wide receiver. But yeah, that's my opinion with the Chargers there. It seems like we're kind of a little bit scratching our heads, but maybe we'll just be thanking the bookmakers on that one.
Completely.
All right. We are moving on to the Denver Broncos. But before we do that, I want to tell you about some of the things we got going over here on Sports Gambling Podcast Network, SGPN. We've got Munaf, the Machine, Manji, and Chris getting you ready for the NFL season on their PropCast. They got episodes dedicated to props, similar to us, but they also go through awards markets and look at things from a bit of a different angle. We've got a lot of guys who really know and love football and are just trying to help you win some money. So check them out over on the PropCast. And then check out CJ Sullivan and his road to $10 million on Bottom Line Bombs. That's right. We're going to talk about our Circus Survivor here in a little bit. But yeah, we're going to check in with CJ and see how he's doing there on his road to 10 mil. Tune in wherever you get podcasts for the SGPN app. That's the same thing with us, right? We got it on YouTube. We got it on Spotify. We got it on Apple Podcasts. We've got you covered. All right, let's get into the Denver Broncos, a team that was 8-9 last year, which is surprising to me. I thought they were worse than that. 8-9 last year, coming in with a win total of 5.5 only. Losses, not so much, but from impactful positions, really all those guys played meaningful minutes. Russell Wilson obviously is now in the Steel City up in Pittsburgh. Jerry Jeudy is gone. Where is Jerry Jeudy actually?
Cleveland. Got traded to Cleveland.
Oh yeah,
a new deal up there, and
him and Jameis are gonna have fun throwing each other the ball.
Yeah.
And then you got Cushenberry's out at the center, Josie Jewell, who's a really good linebacker, and Justin Simmons, who's a really good safety. So some key pieces on the defense there. And then your additions, I guess the MILF hunter himself, Mr. Zach Wilson, Josh Reynolds, who I think is a pretty good receiver coming over from Detroit. Yeah, Sam Mustaver, never heard of him. Maybe I don't know who that guy is. Was he a rookie?
No.
All right, well, shit. Okay. Lineman John Franklin Myers coming over from the Jets. He's a good player. Cody Barton coming over from the Commandos. Yeah. Levi Wallace, Brandon Jones. And then the big one, Bo Nix, right? Mr. Bo Nix from Oregon, finally leaving college. I feel like he was in college forever. Just one of those things. Like,
he was one of those 8th-year seniors.
Exactly. COVID year times 3. So
yes, COVID year, 3 red shirts, a transfer year. I think.
What are we thinking about this Sean Payton-led Denver Broncos team? What are the?
I really don't know. I just hope for Broncos fans that Sean knows what he's doing. because I sure don't understand the direction that he's taken this team. Not that they've, had a ton of changes over the last year. Like you said, they had pretty minimal losses.
Yeah.
Of course, 3 or 4 of them did play meaningful snaps, meaningful minutes, whatever we want to say. But at the same time, like Russell Wilson, I believe, lost his job with a winning record last year.
That's so crazy
wild,
to me.
which is just wild. So I don't know what kind of ego play that is, or if it's just purely, Jarrett Stidham is the guy, or Bo Nix is the guy, and we just need to.
They were trying to do anything to not pay his contract out. That was a crazy, weird situation.
It is. I'm perfectly fine with them paying him to play in Pittsburgh, though. So
yeah.
But yeah, no, I think the big question is like, who's going to be the starting quarterback week 1? And I know we're going to talk about that here in a little bit, but like,
damn good
is it going to be Jarrett Stidham? Is it going to be Zach Wilson? Is it going to be Bo Nix, the rookie? Like, all 3 of them have their ups and downs, maybe not necessarily as far as Bo Nix goes, but he's a rookie. So it's just hard because they don't have, the best skill positions. They don't have the best offensive line. It's not bad, but on defense, they're okay.
Exactly. I mean, I think that's the perfect catchphrase for this team right now. They're okay.
Yeah.
Like, this is the most bland roster I've ever seen. And I mean, the win total reflects that, right? In the 5.5. Right. And, let's be honest, they weren't that much better of a team last year, and they got to 8 wins. So it's kind of, this team is a little bit interesting. It's like sometimes they show flashes, but roster wise, they should win like 3 games. But hey, maybe Sean Payton is rallying the troops. But I think the quarterback position, and losing Justin Simmons out of the back end and Josie Jewell, I think is going to make a difference. Yep. But really, their playmakers it's hard to get excited about this team. They're just kind of one of those teams that are just there right now. Sure. Let's talk about some of these injuries here. Starting with safety Caden Stearns, who had a patellar tear after season-ending hip surgery the year before. So a guy who, we just talked about other safety, so he's strong safety, free safety, Justin Simmons leaving. He struggled to stay on the field the past 2 years in a row. He's had season-ending surgery. So, he's coming off another one in week 1, which is just brutal. I hate seeing that for guys, man. You work your ass off to come back from a major injury, and then boom, week 1, you're out. So, but I mean, there is an injury risk when you come back from these big time injuries. So he's going to have another higher increased injury risk. Patellar tendon tear. So that is the tendon that connects your kneecap or your patella to your tibia. It's really just an extension of the quad tendon there for your quadriceps, but requires season-ending surgery, about 8 to 10 month typical recovery timeline. Because he got injured in week 1, he is coming off a 12-month recovery window. So how are we feeling about Mr. Caden Stearns?
Yeah, it's again kind of a tough spot for Stearns, just like with Dobbins that we talked about. If you haven't played for 2 years, you're not gonna get better at playing football, especially from a defensive side. Like you have to read and react much more on the defensive side compared to the offensive side of the football, right?
Especially at safety.
Exactly. Especially at defensive back, especially at safety, with all of these lower body related injuries, like it makes me wonder, like, was the patellar tendon, was the quad kind of thing because of something,
compensation with the hip,
some sort of a compensation thing, right? From the hip related stuff.
Yep.
If we've continued to rehab this quad, are we going to start compensating somewhere else? Are we actually getting through our entire rehab before we get this guy back on the field? So, he does definitely have the timeline there. I'm not terribly worried, but at the same time, like, it's going to take him a little bit to just get back in the swing of things and get back to playing football.
Yeah, it's he's gonna play this season, but what's he gonna look like, right? Like He hasn't played football for 2 years because he's been injured, coming back from 2 major injuries. And we can almost kind of retweet, rinse, and repeat with Tim Patrick, wide receiver there, coming off an ACL tear, tore his Achilles during the preseason in August 2nd. Achilles tear, we've talked about 10 to 12 month typical recovery timeline. And when we say recovery timeline, we're talking about when you can actually get back on the field and play football, when you can actually, not when you can run, not when you can straight line run, get back in practice. When can you react to other grown men trying to take your head off, right?
Exactly.
So, 13 months is how much time he has. But again, I think we can just kind of say the same thing. He hasn't played football in 2 years, and it's tough to project him to have a great season coming off that. Now, he's not as listed as a starter right now. He's got Josh Reynolds and Marvin Mims and Sutton in front of him. But, he's someone that potentially back half of the season, if he can start producing, start being a waiver wire pickup or something like that. But then we start talking about what the hell is this quarterback room going to look like? Is this really something we think, can this quarterback room really sustain a wide receiver 3 or a wide receiver 2?
And not really even so much the wide receiver, but like as an offense as a whole, like this is just a rotating piece everywhere with this offense. Like they have 3 or 4 running backs. So it's just going to be every other series, just switching dudes out. You have 3 quarterbacks, so we're not exactly sure who's going to be the starting quarterback. Is it going to be Bo Nix? Is it going to be Zach Wilson?
Give them all a series, man.
Yeah, exactly.
The typical.
That you have 5 or 6 wide receivers that, okay, they're okay. Outside of Cortland Sutton, like, are you excited about any of them? Nope, I'm not. I'm sure.
I do like Josh Reynolds, but not like he's not. If I'm a defensive coordinator, he's not keeping me up at night.
He's not. Yeah, he's not scaring me.
Yeah. No. Yeah. No. The tough situations for both Stearns and Patrick. Now we're going to talk about 2 guys, same position, dealing with a little bit different things.Ose are tight ends, Greg Dulcich and Adam Troutman. We'll start with Troutman. Picked up a minor abdomen issue. Not a ton out there on what he was dealing with. Excuse me. These offseason injuries, they don't have to give a lot of information, so sometimes they won't. So the expectation is he's back by training camp, but let's be honest, that's what every fucking team says. So one of those guys that we just want to keep on a list and make sure, hey, how's this tracking? How's this going? And then Greg Dulcich, a guy who fantasy community has fallen in love with for the past 2 seasons for whatever reason. I don't know if it's because he looks good running around in shorts and has long flow hair or what. But, he's been dealing with hamstring injuries for the past 2 seasons. He got injured first week of the season and then re-injured himself again, missed most of the season last year. Now, the injury within itself is only about a 2 to 3 month recovery timeline, and he's got closer to 10, 11 months. But are you trusting in any way, Greg Dulcich to really come back and show you anything this year?
I wouldn't necessarily say no, but I want to just make sure that he's not making his way up to Green Bay and getting his hamstrings strength tested. Christian Watson's kind of had the same issue, and they found a 10% difference between his hamstrings. That's Holy insane. Shit! After 2 years of dealing with
that's so bad, man.
We come up with a 10% difference in hamstring strength. Like should be something. As you walk into training camp, let's do some baseline testing or
that
something.
Is undergraduate level, like introductory stuff, man. How are you at the top of your profession at the highest level and you're not checking asymmetries between these guys? I mean, like the technology and the force plates that I know they have available to them, this should be we talked about the Packers situation. Yep. Is it a similar situation here, or is it just a guy who just doesn't know when to cool it off? I mean, we have patients all the time. We tell them, look, your hamstring is going to feel better before it's actually healed. Right. It is a very high re-injury rate. Do not run. Do not sprint. It's hard to tell if it's hard to tell to soldiers, it's hard to tell to professional athletes that rely on their body and are used to performing at a high level. So, we'll see what's going on there. But really, we'll kind of move over to the fantasy side here with Troutman and Dulcich, right? Right now, Troutman's listed at tight end 1. And he's going at tight end 53, and then Dulcich is going at tight end 37, listed as tight end 2. So basically somebody's got to fucking play this position on this team, right? Yep. So, it's again, we talked about the quarterback situation. Is it really worth? I guess it's worth the conversation. Are you taking a shot at either of these guys, or is this something you just want to stay away from completely?
I'm staying away from him in general, but I think Dulcich, depending on how he starts, like he could be like that waiver wire pickup for the week that you're starting tight ends out, kind of a thing. I think between the two, I would probably take Dulcich just production wise, but at the same time, like neither of these guys are going to be 10 points a week kind of guys, most likely. Like they're not, neither of them are going to be real consistent, especially with the quarterbacks that they have. So I'm probably passing on both of them unless, it's a bye week and I have to have somebody up. Greg Dulcich is sitting there. Let's give him a toss up and just hope for the best.
It's hard. I mean, there's also a standpoint that Sean Payton may just hate Greg Dulcich because last year he just like wouldn't play him. But I mean, Dulcich did have 400 yards his rookie year, and Troutman has never gone over 275 in his 4 or 5 years in the league. So it's hard to get excited about either of these teams. But some guys I think we can get excited of. We talked about the QB concerns. We talked about who are the pass catchers outside Cortland Sutton. The secondary as well is an interesting position where, you got Pat Surtain, top hands down, one of the best players of the position. But outside of that, we got a lot of question marks, including Caden Stearns, who has he's a good prospect, but he just can't stay on the damn field. So some interesting things. But in the fantasy realm, let's talk about Javonte Williams and Cortland Sutton. Javonte Williams going around RB29, Cortland Sutton about wide receiver 42. Talk to me about a little bit of those guys who we know are going to be getting some carries and touches throughout the year.
Yeah, I mean, Cortland Sutton, if you're in your average 10-12 team league, that's a wide receiver 3, if not wide receiver 4. He's their number 1 option by far, right? So I think getting Sutton as wide receiver, what'd you say, 40 something?
42.
Yeah, 42. I think that's a steal. You're getting a wide receiver 1. Of course, we don't know what the quarterback situation is going to be. He had his ups and downs throughout the season last year, but at the same time, like they got to throw the ball to somebody. And for the most part, like we've been talking about, like we're not super high on these Denver Broncos, so they're going to be behind in some of these games, and they're going to be throwing the ball a little bit. So
somebody's got to be behind.
Exactly. So I'm kind of liking Sutton going at 42. Javonte Williams, I think that's probably around where he needs to be. Because like we talked about, this is kind of like a 3-4 horse rotation, right? And yes, Javonte Williams is probably that number 1 guy, but we know P. Ryan's going to get some carries. We know McLaughlin's going to get some carries. Audric Estime, whatever.
Yeah.
Coming out of Notre Dame, he's probably
kid's a tank, man. Kid's a tank.
Exactly. So, who really knows where or the bulk of the carries is going to end up being here in Denver? Most likely Javonte Williams, but that's why you're seeing him at kind of like that RB 2.5, 3 position.
Yeah. No, I want to like Javonte Williams because I do think there's a chance that this Denver team could run the ball 30 times, right? With their issues at quarterback. Sure. But you're right. It's a lot. I mean, you got P. Ryan, you got McLaughlin, you got the Estime kid. A Javonte Williams of his rookie year or his first year, he looked really good. Now, last year he was coming off the ACL tear. It was kind of expected for him to have a slower year. But I'm just nervous that if he doesn't start producing right away, they're going to just start moving on to the hot hand. And he's going to begin down. But, I mean, for his credit, last year, I'm looking at his game logs. He was getting double-digit touches in mostly every game. It did kind of taper off. He had a little stretch where he was 15 carries for 82, 27 for 85, 21 for 79. And it kind of tapered off from there. So, I think you're right. I think Javonte Williams is probably going around where he should be. But I think Cortland Sutton is going way too low. Entirely too low. I mean, he had 10 touchdowns last year and almost 800 yards. And that was with, quarterback concerns already. It's not like they had a great quarterback situation last year. So I think Cortland Sutton has proven that he's kind of a guy that can be.
He's probably taken a step down in terms of wide receiver too. Like I would probably put Judy above Josh Reynolds. They're fairly even, but I would still probably put Judy above Reynolds.
Yeah, I mean, Judy's definitely the better talent for sure. I mean, he just couldn't stay on the damn field and actually produce. But I like Sutton. So, and that's going to lead me right into my best bet for this team. The weird freaking team, right? We talked about it. How are they? I don't even know how they were 8-9 last year with a team that just roster wise didn't look great, and nothing to excite me this year. So I'm going to stay away from their win total, because this is a team that I could really see winning 3 games or having another 8-win season, right? Because they're good enough, but they don't have that flash, that kind of like pizzazz that really excites me and really wants me to back them. But Cortland Sutton is a guy I want to back. Over 5.5 receiving touchdowns on the year at plus 110. He had 10 touchdowns last year. I just think, again, they've got to throw it to somebody. He's a big 6'4" wide receiver. He's a big target. Whether you're talking about a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix, or whether you're talking about Jarrett Stidham or the MILF hunter himself and Zach Wilson, I think he's an easy big target in the red zone, right? And I don't think this team is that bad where it's a Carolina Panthers situation where they're just never going to get into the red zone. I think that, he's someone that can have some touchdowns. He's a clear wide receiver 1. And then the other one here, we talked about the quarterback room and the concerns. Give me Jarrett Stidham to be the week 1 starter at plus 650. Look,
the wily Denver vet.
Exactly. I mean, you got so I was just looking at it, right? Bo Nix, he's 24 years old. You've got Zach Wilson, also 24 years old, even though he's been in the league for a little bit. But Bo Nix is definitely, absolutely 1,000% the quarterback of the future, right? But you got a team that on paper is not very good. You really do not want to roll a rookie quarterback out there and kind of hurt their confidence when you don't know what running back you're really going to be rolling out there. You've got question marks all over the field. So Sean Payton just loves Jarrett Stidham. He got him when free agency opened right away last season. He run out of his way to get Jarrett Stidham when nobody in the world wanted him. He didn't have to get him on the first day, but he proved a point, right? And we saw that come up. You just talked about it. Russell Wilson got benched with a winning record for Jarrett Stidham, right? I mean, the fact that Jarrett Stidham right now is listed as QB1 on the depth chart, he's going to go in. It's going to be an open competition. But I think Sean Payton's got a little bit of a liking for the way Jarrett Stidham plays. He's definitely obviously got, I guess he doesn't have as much experience as Zach Wilson, but you can't roll Zach Wilson out there after what we saw him coming off of. Yeah. So I just like the situation where it's plus 650. I think that's just the value there. You got a coach who really likes him, and you got a situation where if I wouldn't roll out the rookie to kind of get slaughtered right away in week 1. What about you? What say you for this Denver Broncos team?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a ton. I think in general, Denver is a little bit worse than they were last year. Like they had so many different moving parts last year that it's so surprising that they won 8 games. Their roster is okay. Like we were saying earlier, like they're okay everywhere, but they're not really great anywhere either. And for the most part, they didn't really lose a ton. They had a couple good pickups in terms of the offseason. We'll see where this quarterback thing goes. But I don't see them necessarily losing 3 more games than they did last year. Like, I still think they're like a 6-win, 7-win team.
Yeah.
Like, I think them and the Chargers are like the same, basically, when it comes down to the end of the day. I like Denver's defense, but their offense is they're okay. And it's just really hard to see or hard to tell what they're going to put on the field. So I do like the Broncos over 5.5 at plus 105. But that's really about it when it comes to the Broncos. There's so many question marks in terms of who's getting the carries, who's getting the receptions, who's going to be that quarterback, that I wasn't really comfortable putting any, stat prop features out there. So I just stuck with the over 5.5.
Yeah, no, I actually don't hate this at all. I may actually play it myself. It's just interesting because I agree with you. I don't think this Broncos team is 3 losses worse than they were last year. The same token, the same way I don't think that the LA Chargers were 3 wins better than they were last year, right? I think, there was a little bit of change, but not that much. I think that's a big overcorrection, and I think they probably play into each other a little bit. So I like that.
Nix is like a 7th.
He's as old as Zach Wilson.
He's like a 7-year college vet. So, I think he started like 80 games in college. So he might come in and like the Denver air up out there. So
exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think he does bring you a decent floor. I don't know about his ceiling, but I think he does bring you a decent floor there. And again, they've got good enough guys with Sutton and Javonte Williams and Josh Reynolds, but I can't see this team being an 8-win or 9. Well, they won 8 games last year, but I can't see them being anything crazy. But definitely, I don't think they're as bad as people are projecting them to be.
I agree.
All right, we are halfway through with our team breakdowns, and before we get to those Las Vegas Raiders, we are talking about Underdog Fantasy. Of course, folks, look, our friends over at Underdog Fantasy, we love Underdog Fantasy. We'll be doing some best ball drafts coming up this offseason. We'll be giving out Underdog pick'ems all year long. We love Underdog because they love football, and so do we. So look, their pick 8 is now live. You used to only be up to 5 picks. Now you can do up to 8 picks. Underdog will automatically double flex your entry, so you can mix up to 2 picks and still win your entry. With more picks to make and extra ways to win, the excitement is higher than ever. Best part, you can win up to 325x your original amount. That's right, $1 can win you $325 there. You can now use specials and boosts on all flex entries. Pick 8, I can't wait for the NFL season. And they've also got some of their season-long picks that we're going to talk about here right now. They run these specials. This was obviously when Poetan put Yuri into the ground and just decimated him with that high leg kick. But, they run specials all the time, whether it's for Caitlin Clark or they're doing WNBA, soccer stuff, stuff that's like a free square. So they give out a lot of bonuses and stuff. We love our friends over at Underdog. We're going to talk about one here. Why don't you tell us what we're looking at here with Chris Jones?
Yeah, Chris Jones, we're going lower than 11.25 sacks this upcoming year. He's only hit this number twice in his NFL career. And that Kansas City defense has some young up and coming guys that I think are just going to start chipping into his sack numbers a bit. So we're going to go lower than 11.25 sacks with Chris Jones.
Yeah, I think a good player. It's not really anything against him. It's just a really high number for a guy who's now 30 years old. I think he had a pretty damn good season last year, and he had 10.5 sacks. He didn't hit this number, right? So it's hard to project him to really be that much higher. And we'll talk about that team here in a little bit and kind of run back to that. But,
sure.
Like you were thinking, do they take a step back in the secondary with no L'Jarius Sneed? Coverage creates sacks. So we'll see there. So we're going to be on the lower for Chris Jones. Another reason why we love Underdog there, they love defense too. And defensive props, folks, I'm telling you, there's money to be made. All right, so sign up with promo code SGPNDoc. Promo code SGPNDoc to claim your special pick and first-time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code SGPNDoc. Easy as sign up, promo code, put in 250, boom, 250 automatically. All right, before we talk about the Raiders, Circa Sports is back with Circa Survivor and Circa Millions, giving away $16 million in guaranteed prizes. And of course, Circa contests have no rake. Circa Millions, you pick 5 teams against the spread each week and compete for $6 million. And you can survive the NFL gauntlet with a typical survivor where you claim $10 million in prize. Sign up in person at Circa Sports between now and September 7th and use a proxy to play from anywhere. We even have a deal with footballcontestproxy.com to save yourself $50 with promo code SGP. If you don't have a book for Vegas already, when's a great time to come out? During the Ultimate Contest weekend, August 22nd through the 24th. Come out. The big honchos, Ryan and Sean, are going to be out there. They got a bunch of great events, open bar. They will reward you for signing up and doing something you want to do already. So go out there if you're planning on playing either the Millions or Survivor. Get out there the 22nd to 24th and have a good time. Have a drink. We are big Circa supporters here. All right, getting back to it. We're going to do the Raiders and finish up with the Chiefs and get the hell out of here. Talking about this Las Vegas Raiders team, 8-9 last year. Some losses. Jimmy G is gone. I think the clips are kind of floating around that Devontae Adams, we thought that was going to be a good pairing. Old college roommates, I think, definitely teammates. And Devontae Adams was pretty pissed because Jimmy G's kind of sucks. So he doesn't have Kyle Shanahan to kind of help shade his inadequacies there. Josh Jacobs is now in Green Bay. Hunter Renfrow, I have no idea where Hunter Renfrow is. He even picked up yet?
Nope, he's still free agent. Did you say him and Jimmy G were college roommates.
Devontae Adams, yeah, Fresno State.
I thought that was Derek Carr.
Oh shit, you're right. Good call. Good
Come
call.
on.
Sorry, the whiskey is hitting, folks.
Got to work on your research skills.
I know. Research.
Come on.
Rooney's research. No, that's why you're here. You're here to make sure I don't say anything too stupid. So we're getting to that point in the show. So yes, I apologize. Jimmy G played at Eastern Illinois, I think, right?
That's correct. That's
Eastern
correct.
Illinois, not Fresno State.
But you were correct. Hunter Renfrow has not been picked up. Austin Hooper is now in New England, I believe, right?
Hooper is, geez, where is Austin Hooper?
I think he's in New England. You look at that one. Jermaine Illuminor.
He's on the Giants, baby.
He's a Giant.
Yeah, Hooper is in New England. Good call. Look at you.
Yep.
You're tapped in.
And then we got a couple defensive linemen there as well, and Jerry Tillery and Bilal Nichols, but they did add quite a bit in terms of Gardner Minshew, the Pro Bowl quarterback that he is making his way out to Vegas. Alexander Madison at the running back position coming over from Minnesota. Michael Gallup, Christian Wilkins, massive pickup. And then they brought in a couple pretty good draft picks in terms of Brock Bowers, which was somewhat of a surprise when it went back to.
I'm surprised he fell that far.
Yeah. But they also drafted a tight end a year prior in the first round, so they got a couple first round tight ends in that room. And then really center, but it looks like he may be starting at guard for the Raiders. Jackson Powers Johnson.
Yeah, Oregon guy there. I like what they've done in the offseason, man. Some of these takeaways. I think Christian Wilkins is one of the best defensive linemen. He's like a Dexter Lawrence type, a solid player that does not get nearly enough credit because he's not a flashy, sexy edge rusher.
Exactly. He just wreaks havoc. He
wakes a lot of the little plays that don't always show up at the stat sheet, but make you a better defense.
Either that or he's taken on two
teams,
offensive linemen at the same time and freeing somebody else up. But
exactly. I think, like you said, Crosby now on the same line, and that Kuntz guy, I think he was a rookie last year, a younger player. He showed some promise. I like their D line off the bat, and they're skilled players now. You got Zamir White, who we're going to talk about. You got Tay Adams, you got Jacoby Myers, you got Brock Bowers. Not too bad on the skill positions now. And then really the big question, are we going Minshew Mania? Are we going AOC? Off the top here, if you were Antonio Pierce, shout out Antonio Pierce, great linebacker for my New York Football Giants, Super Bowl champion Antonio Pierce, even though he beat the brakes off of the Giants last year and tore Daniel Jones' ACL. So what the fuck, coach? But anyway, if you were Antonio Pierce or the head coach for the Las Vegas Raiders, are you rolling out there Minshew Mania? Or are you going back to Aiden O'Connell and AOC there?
I think I have to go with Minshew. I think he's had at this point in his career, like he's been a starting quarterback or played that in that starting quarterback role for a couple seasons at this point. And I think he's proven that he can put up numbers. Like, yes, he's gonna have those like 3 picks, 2 touchdown games kind of a thing. But then he's going to come out and completely flip it on its head and throw for, 350, 2 touchdowns and no picks the next week. So I think we saw enough of Aiden O'Connell going back to last year.
Oh my gosh. I can't see any more of him. If I see any more of Aiden O'Connell, I might I love football, but I don't want to not watch any game, but that might be a game I have to just peek over, give me a little box score on that one, because holy shit, man, throwing for under 100 yards consistently. I mean, to their credit, they were winning, but I think in my case, man, it is Minshew all the way. Now, it's insane that he was a Pro Bowler last year. When you reminded me of that, I was like, let me fact check you here. But he did come in after AR-15 went down and looked pretty good with the Colts. And I think he's got a decent situation. You don't have to have him do too much, right? No. All you got to do is throw to one of the best wide receivers in football and Devontae Adams. You got Brock Bowers, who I hate to say it,
probably the best tight end prospect to come out in quite
a long time. I don't know what happened. I mean, I know 2 years ago or his freshman year, like everyone thought he was going to be a world beater, and he really was. Again, I'm a huge Florida Gators fan. I hated the guy because he just tore us up. I mean, I remember this one play where he just took it off of our linebacker's shoulder, essentially tipped it up and caught it for a 50-yard touchdown. I think it was Monty Burney there. He's just a stud player. Like, he already looks like he's a 40-year-old dad with his receding hairline, but don't be fooled. Brock Bowers is a dude. So right. I think Minshew gives them the best chance to win. We'll talk about I'm a little bullish on this team, as you can probably already tell. Let's talk about their one injury. I mean, another reason to kind of be excited right now is they don't have many injury concerns. You got one guy that I could find, and, I'm trying to look through last year's, look through anything that's happened in the offseason. It's just Michael Mayer right now, who's projected to be tight end 2. Picked up a turf toe injury. It was just kind of, they called it a toe injury. They never really said what it was. He ended on the season on IR, but the team wasn't making the playoffs, and it was just kind of one of those things he tried to come back from. It was annoying, couldn't come back. It's really more of like a month to 2 month thing. He's got 8.5 months. Any concerns at all here?
Nope, not at all. Yeah. I think, it'll be interesting to see if they can get both Mayer and Bowers on the field at the same time. I think that 2 tight end set coming out of Las Vegas might be the best tight end tandem in the NFL.
If Mayer takes a step forward, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it'll be right there. I think the Bills,
Knox and Kincaid,
and Kincaid is pretty solid as well. But again, probably at least top 3 in the NFL. Yeah. So it'll be interesting. Both of them are more pass catching tight ends, but if they can get them both on the field, I think that even improves, that skill position that we've been talking about with the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, look, if I was a Raiders fan, Gardner Minshew, Zamir White, Michael Mayer, Brock Bowers, Devonta Adams, and Jacoby Myers on the field at the same time, I would be excited about that, actually. With a pretty good defense, like I would be pretty excited about that as far as, how this team has looked in the past couple of years. So we'll talk about, let's go ahead and head over to the fantasy realm here. We talked about the AOC Gardner Minshew debate. Let's talk about some of these guys. Gardner Minshew there, basically free at quarterback 33, right? Yep. I think this is a guy in best ball who I've drafted before, where he's got one of the best wide receivers in the entire league. I think he's going to be the starter. We'll talk about this in a second. I think he's going to be the starter the whole season, but he's got the best wide receiver, one of the best wide receivers in the league. You got Brock Bowers, you got Jacoby Myers. Like, I think he could have some weeks where he puts up some nice numbers. Now, in a redraft kind of managed league situation, I don't think this is someone I'd be drafting because he's probably not making my lineups very too often unless this offense looks a little different than I think they're going to look. But what about Brock Bowers at tight end 12? Do you think that's a good spot for him? Too low, too high?
Yeah, honestly, it's probably about right. I think there's a lot of pretty solid tight ends like in the NFL right now. I think the position as a whole has really changed over the last 4, 5, 6 years. Like not too long ago, there were like 3 or 4 tight ends, and if not one of those 3 or 4, you were shuffling every single week, right? Where now there's a solid 10, 12 guys that you can almost set and forget, except for those bye weeks.
Yep. No, I like that too. Another guy, Zamir White, RB23. We've both talked about this offline, and I think we both like him. He's a guy who kind of, I want to say came out of nowhere, but in the last part of the season, the last 4 weeks, let's look at his game logs here. He had, against the Chargers when they beat the shit out of him, 63-21. He had 17 carries for 69 yards and a touchdown. Then against Kansas City, where they beat Kansas City in Kansas City, 22 carries and 145 yards. Then against the Colts, 20 carries, 71 yards. And then against the Denver Broncos to finish out the year, 25 carries and 112 yards. I mean, that's, quick math, around 400 yards in the last 4 weeks.
Yep.
I think the guy has the potential to be a stud. And when you play at a program like University of Georgia, as much as it pains me to say, they have a solid running back committee rotation of guys. So a lot of those guys kind of get overshadowed, and they're really good prospects. They're really good players. and then they finally get an opportunity and they tend to kind of break. And I think Zamir White I know he's a very polarizing guy in the fantasy realm, but he's someone that I am fully bought in on because I think they're going to run the rock. Whether it's Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew, you should not have either of those guys throw more than 30 times a game. So I think they're going to play good defense and then run the ball. And I think Zamir White, really, Alexander Madison doesn't give me much of a scare.
I was just going to say, with that being said, I mean, your RB2 in this offense is Alexander Madison. And we saw what he looked like as that premier guy last year up in Minnesota. And he wasn't there. Like he took a massive hit. You know, we thought he was going to be able to step in for Dalvin Cook. Wasn't even close, right?
No.
He was very inefficient. So I think exactly. I think you're on the right track with Zamir White, and we'll bring him back up here in a little bit to kind of prove that.
Why don't you go into your best bets here for this? So Raiders 8-9 last year with a win total of just 6.5 this year. Juice the over at -130, under +110. What are your best bets for this 2024 Las Vegas Raiders team?
Yeah, so I do like the Raiders. You know, I think they're around where they were last year, maybe a little bit better. I think they're around that 500 mark. They're 8-9, 9-8. So I think there's a few position players that will take a step forward. One being Zamir White, and I think he's going to have more touches. He's going to have more opportunities, and I think he goes over 4.5 rushing touchdowns. And that's being listed at -110. I also really like Max Crosby. That dude is an absolute animal. On that defensive line. Yep. And, you know, going back to the start of this part of the pod, you bring in a massive piece in Christian Wilkins. It's just going to clog the middle up, and he's going to take on those double teams a lot of times. So I think that just frees up Max Crosby to do his thing even more. So I think Max Crosby has a really good shot having the most sacks in the NFL. And that's being listed at +600 right now.
Nice.
And then finally, I might as well go ahead and bring it up now because, like I said, I do like the Raiders. I don't like them quite as much as the defending champs, you know, but how I foresee this whole division, ending up is really Chiefs to win yet again.
Okay.
The Raiders to maybe take a little bit of a step forward, stay about where they are. Okay. You know, I think the Broncos and the Chargers are just kind of neck and neck towards the bottom of this division. And I think the Chargers do take a slight step forward. I think Denver takes a slight step back. So I actually have all 4 teams of the division in an exacta format. So I like the Chiefs finishing first, Raiders in second, Chargers third, Broncos fourth at +550.
Okay. Yeah, bringing out the exacta boxes there, making me feel like we're back in the Derby. Right. No, that is. I mean, it's hard to argue with you there. I think, you know, would I potentially flip the Broncos and Chargers, like you said? I don't know, but yeah, I'm definitely aligned with you, and that'll bring me into one of mine here. Well, I'll talk about it when I talk about the Chiefs, but I am much in agreement with you there. So for me on this Raiders side of the ball, I am, you know, pretty optimistic on this team. First thing I'm going to say is I think Gardner Minshew is the week 1 starter at -135. Right now, he is the favorite over AOC, Aiden O'Connell there. I just think you went out and you got him. We saw what you gave Aiden O'Connell opportunity last year. You know, he had all the opportunity in the world. Again, I think he looked horrid. Even though they still won some games, I think he looked really bad. So give me Gardner Minshew, week 1 starter, -135. I think it's a steal. I also like Zamir White, like I talked about, giving his over 775.5 rushing yards at -115. I just think, you know, he had almost 400 yards in 4 weeks, right? I think he's going to be the guy. I think he's going to get the huge amount of volume. Antonio Pierce is going to run the rock. So I love that. And then another player prop here. We're going to go to the defensive side of the ball. Christian Wilkins over 4.75, so 4 3/4 sacks at -110. You talked about Max Crosby. I like both these dudes. You know, Crosby's numbers obviously a little bit higher, but I think they're going to free each other up. I think Kuntz on the other side. You know, Christian Wilkins had 9 sacks last year. He had Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips. Now he goes to Max Crosby and Kuntz there on the other side. I think that he's got the potential to easily get over this number, easily get around 6-7 sacks. So I will definitely be playing some of his props throughout the year, but I like him season long sacks there. And then my biggest one is Las Vegas Raiders to make the playoffs at plus 300. I do think they take a step forward. I think they get to 9 or 10 wins this year. They won 8 games last year with terrible, terrible quarterback play. Although I don't think Gardner Minshew is a Pro Bowler, he did make the Pro Bowl last year. He is a step up. And then you also add Brock Bowers, Christian Wilkins, the rookie out of Oregon there. And I think Zamir White is going to fill in just fine. So I'm pretty bullish on this team. And, I think it all comes down to that. Make the playoffs plus 300.
All right. Just going off of that, I think that's where we differ on this Raiders team just a little bit. Like, I looked at the Raiders to make the playoffs and I wanted to do it. The AFC is just stacked. Like, there are so many teams in the AFC that I think they're on the cusp, but they need that one more.
Yeah. What were the Steelers when they got in at 7 last year? What was their record last year?
10-7.
10-7. Yeah. See, that's why I think they're a 10. I think they're a 10-1 team. So I think they could get it. And at 3-1, I think I'm willing to take that action. They were 9-1 to win the division. I'm not that crazy about them, right. But I do think they can sneak in there. All right, let's talk about our last team. But before we do that, I want to tell you about Rhythm. If you're betting on player props, then you need to download Rhythm. Rhythm is a go-to sports betting tool that transforms complex data into actionable insights, empowering bettors with smarter, data-driven decisions. Unlike other platforms, Rhythm combines advanced predictive analytics with an intuitive user experience, making betting both easy and enjoyable. Rhythm's predictive models were born from the brains of MIT data scientists and quants with over 3 years of data that help drive you better back AI-backed betting decisions. Holy shit. I apologize. Rhythm projections have been red hot for WNBA and golf. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. Man, I really got to move that ad read to the beginning of the show, because once that whiskey starts flowing, man, talking about quants and data scientists. Look, we're both nerds. We're nerds in our own right, but we're not on the math side of all that shit. So, all right, man, let's wrap it up with the Super Bowl champion. Again,
City Chiefs,
back-to-back Super Bowl Kansas City Chiefs there. Man, this is a team that we'll talk about. They're like the same fucking team, man. I think that we can kind of skim through some of these losses. I think Willie Gay is a notable loss. I think Alec Reddy, lineman, who's stepped in and played the Super Bowl when Joe Dooney was out, he's a little of a loss, but he was a backup. L'Jarius Sneed, I think one of, if not the best corner in the league. So him going over to Tennessee, that is a loss. And on the addition side of the ball, I mean, Hollywood Brown is an addition. Xavier Worthy out of Texas. Those are kind of your two additions in wide receiver room that's likely going to be without Rashee Rice for probably about half the year with all his trouble with the law. So, what are your takeaways from this team?
Yeah, no, obviously L'Jarius Sneed is a massive loss. I would tend to agree. Willie Gay is a pretty big loss as well. The one that I think is more of a loss than probably Willie Gay is Donovan Smith at offensive tackle. The last time we saw Kansas City without a decent offensive tackle, they made it to the Super Bowl somehow, but then they got absolutely whomped by Tom Brady in the Tampa Bay Bucks. So are they going to be able to hold up on that left side that Donovan Smith had taken over the last couple years with Wanya Morris or the rookie Kingsley Suamataia?
Definitely not that, but yeah, close. Yeah, Sumatai.
Suamataia.
I think it's just Sumatai, but all right, go ahead.
Sure. Anyways, I think the wide receiver room probably took a step forward with Marquise Brown and obviously Xavier Worthy, the speedster out of Texas. But like you said, they're running it back. Let's run for 3 in a row with basically the same team. as
I mean,
last
it's
year.
hard to fault them really, but I think that's a great mention by you there with that left tackle spot, man. Wanya Morris or a rookie, like you better be ready to bring your lunch pail because that could be how far this team works. Now, I don't think that's gonna like tank their season, but when you start talking about the Chiefs, you're talking about almost penciling them into the playoffs and probably winning the division, right? So it's kind of like we saw them last year where they looked pretty lackluster. I mean, they started the year with an L. They're playing the Ravens in week 1. That can easily be an L. You know, they're definitely vulnerable throughout the year, but then they just turn it on. And, you know, you got to have that bookend left tackle to be able to turn it on and give Patrick Mahomes a chance back there against these stud pass rush teams. So that's a great point there. Let's talk about their injury fronts. You know, the big one here is Charles Omenihu, a guy who was coming on late in the year last year. He had a huge strip sack against Lamar Jackson in the AFC Championship game. Unfortunately, in that same game, he tore his ACL. So he's going to be out for a decent amount of the season, if not the whole season. I mean, he only has 7.5 months of recovery timeline, and you want typically around 10 to 11, if not 12 months there. So what is your read on that situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends on kind of like that back quarter of the season, playoff run,
playoff push.
Where is Kansas City when it comes to like week 12, week 13, right?
Yeah.
And if they are where everybody really expects them to be, he's going to start getting ready to roll probably for those last couple regular season games, and hopefully be ready to roll for a postseason run.
Yeah.
But yeah, first half of the season, I don't expect him to see him at all.
Yeah, definitely a pup guy. And then if not, you know, halfway through the year, maybe start getting him some reps to start coming in. But he is the secondary guy right now. He's lined up. You know, I think he's a guy, if he was healthy, he could have worked his way into the starting lineup, but he's not. And he's coming in as defensive tackle too on the depth chart there.
Yep.
So we're going to breeze through a couple other guys who are less injury concerns. You know, Hollywood Brown coming over from Arizona. He had a heel injury, he tried to play through. It was nagging, ultimately ended up in the IR. Team sucked. I don't think there was a lot of incentive for him to play. He probably knew he was leaving. So, you know, typically about a 4 to 6 week thing. You know, he's got 8.5 months. No concerns there. Joe Thuney picked up a pec tear. Looked like a grade 2 pec tear late in the playoffs last season. Thought he may have a chance to play in the Super Bowl. Ultimately not. Typically about a month and a half recovery timeline. He's got 7.5 months now. He should be good to go. If he had any shot to play in the playoffs or the Super Bowl, although he didn't, that tells you that he should be perfectly fine. And then Derek Nottie also missed the Super Bowl with a tricep strain. They just resigned him in March, so that's a great indicator that he's going to be perfectly fine. And the other guy I just want to ask your opinion about is Xavier Worthy. Picked up a bit of a hamstring strain in May. You know, I think the injury itself should be good, but you got a guy, a speedy wide receiver with hamstring strain. He had some injury issues in college, smaller frame guy. What are you thinking there? How much stock are you putting in this hamstring strain?
Was this hamstring strain at the combine? Do we know?
Or was that I think in May is when he picked it up. So I think that would not be fine.
I mean, I'm not super concerned. I think it's one of those things that like
during OTAs.
He was probably trying to gear up to do super well at the combine, super well for, you know, his draft stock. Just try to get that as best as he can. And obviously he did pretty well, you know, obviously running the fastest 40 of all time at the NFL combine. But no, I'm not too concerned. You know, I think it's one of those things that second hamstring strain, third hamstring. Once this becomes, you know, a more chronic issue, that's when I start becoming more concerned with hamstring. It's not in the season. He should be able to rehab this up, get it good and strong by the time training camp even starts, really.
Yeah, I mean, hamstring injuries during the season, immediate red flag for me. Off season, when you got a time to actually let it heal and not push it, okay, a little bit better. So yeah, I'm right there with you. All right, let's get over to the fantasy and these best bets here. This is an interesting team, man. We got the wide receiver. Let's just talk about the wide receivers a little bit. Wide receiver 43, Xavier Worthy. Rice comes in at wide receiver 40, and Hollywood Brown comes at wide receiver 38. You know, they're all kind of clumped together there in the middle. Not sure who's going to kind of separate themselves as wide receiver 1. You think that's a fair spot? Do you see one guy breaking ahead of the others? What's your analysis there?
Yeah, it's pretty tough because I honestly think Rashee Rice would be that guy if he was not a jackass off the field.
Yeah, man, he was set up for such a nice year.
Right, exactly. I mean, I think once he gets back from his suspension, I would probably bet that he is that number one guy.
Yeah.
But he's not going to be there for the first quarter of the season. So
yeah, I mean, we don't. Yeah, at this point, we don't know how long he's going to be out. I haven't really came down with that.
True,
I think everyone understands he's going to be out probably somewhere from 4 to 8, maybe even 10 games.
Yeah,
but it's hard to project that. But I agree, man. Rice, I think he was set up for absolute success. He built that good chemistry with Mahomes. I would be a lot more optimistic about this team with him there. But yeah. All right.
But,
why don't
between Brown and Worthy, I'd probably lean Worthy, but it's a toss up with any of those three guys.
Yeah,
and that's why there's such a drop, and they're kind of all huddled together.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Worthy gives me a little more excitement, but he's not somebody I'm like pounding the table to go get. Yep. So yeah, neither of these guys, really nobody on this team. You know, you got Pacheco at RB10, Kelsey at tight end 2. I think tight end 2 is a little high for me with Travis Kelsey. Getting older, he is a great player. I think he's a top 5 tight end.
But he hasn't been training as much because he's been dancing on the Eras tour. So
there you go. He's a backup.
Who knows what Travis Kelsey's going to give us?
Exactly. Part-time.
8 touchdowns and 950 yards. But anyways.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I think a guy like Trey McBride or Mark Andrews, I'd actually take above him right now. Yeah, let's talk about these best bets. Is it your turn or my turn to go first?
I think it's your turn.
I think so too. All right. So I've only got 2 here. We talked about Chandler Jones and his lower, and part of the reason for that is I like George Karlaftis this season. Give me his over. What?
Chris Jones.
Chandler Jones is. I think he went crazy. So yeah, definitely not Chandler Jones. Chris Jones. But yeah, I am all over the place, man. It's whiskey, man. George Karlaftis over 9.925 sacks at -110, I believe, or -115. Anyway, he had 10.5 sacks last year. He's just progressively got better. He had 6 his rookie year, 10.5 this year. I honestly think, he has a chance to be a really good pass rusher for a lot of years. I really like this draft pick coming out of Purdue there for them. So I think he continues to take a step forward, and, I'll look, but I might have to take a little dabble of him in the lead the league in sacks market, because I know that would be pretty nice. I know I just threw a little dart throw on Chop Robinson. We talked about the Miami pass rush situation, a couple last episode. They're going to have 2 guys that are going to be mostly out for the year. So a couple guys that you might want to have some dart throws there. But give me Karlaftis there. And then top 2 teams in the division, KC and Las Vegas. This is where I was going all episode. I think KC ultimately is the best team in the division. I think they have a similar season. I don't want to touch the win total, 11.5. I could see them being a 12-win team. I could see them being an 11 and 10-win team and winning the division. I like KC and Las Vegas to be the top 2 teams at +245. I think you really just got to be off the Chargers there. I'm not too high on them, and I don't think the Broncos have the quarterback to get there. So that's it for me. What about you?
Yeah, the only one that I ended up taking was Pacheco over 10 rushing touchdowns. And he hasn't done this in his first 2 seasons of his career. But where I think things are turning is like over the last season or 2, we've seen kind of this transition in Kansas City to a more defensive style, pound the rock, not this air it out 50 times and rely on all of these weapons and Kelsey and Mahomes to save the day. Pacheco just continues to roll in this offense. And I think they're just going to keep pounding the rock with him. And they lost Jerick McKinnon. So I think he's going to be on the field even more than last year. Really, the only other back that they have at this point is Edwards-Helaire, and he just hasn't been that talented running back that they expected. So I do like his over 10 rushing touchdowns at +400. Yeah, I think that's it for me.
That's +400?
Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Over 10. Yep.
Oh, wow. All right. I like that. That's interesting. Yeah, I do like that
Those
play.
team schedules. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and do a nice recap here of these best bets for y'all, and let's get the hell out of here. I will let you do the honors first, brother. Give me your best bets for the AFC West this season.
You got it. So I got Josh Palmer over 700.5 receiving yards. I also don't like any team in the NFL to go worst to first. Mostly really talking about the LA Chargers here. The Broncos over 5.5 wins at plus 105. The Chiefs to finish first, Raiders to finish second, Chargers to finish third, and the lowly Broncos to finish fourth at plus 550. Going exacta in the division. Zamir White over 4.5 rushing touchdowns at minus 110. Max Crosby to have the most sacks in the NFL plus 600. And Isaiah Pacheco to score 10 rushing touchdowns at plus 400.
I like that. All right. For me, we are going to start off with the Los Angeles Chargers under 8.5 wins at plus 130. Also, the Chargers under 6.5 wins at plus 370. Josh Palmer over 700.5 receiving yards at minus 115. Going to co-sign my co-host there. Looks like he got a little bit of a better price than I did. What a sharp bastard. Quarterback Jarrett Stidham to start week 1 for the Denver Broncos at plus 650. Wide receiver Cortland Sutton over 5.5 receiving touchdowns at plus 110. Raiders quarterback Gardner Minshew to be the week 1 starter at minus 135. The Raiders to make the playoffs at plus 300. Zamir White over 775.5 rushing yards at minus 115. Christian Wilkins over 4.75 sacks at minus 110. George Karlaftis over 9.25 sacks at minus 110. And then top 2 teams in the AFC West to be KC and Las Vegas at plus 245. All right, folks. Well, I don't know about you, but my whiskey's looking pretty dry. So you got anything for the good people before we get the hell out of here?
Nothing at all. Just I can't wait personally until we talk about this next division coming up. So stay tuned. The AFC North, the best division in football, is right around the corner. But hopefully you enjoyed the AFC West. You know, we're on YouTube, X, TikTok, Instagram. We're on all kinds of things. Give us a share, give us a like, give us a follow on all the platforms. That's about it.
Yeah. Yep. Look, ending with a little bit of Homer there for my co-hosts, Lurs fans, and my wife, where's the terrible towel behind me? Who is a Steelers fan there too as well. So join us for the AFC North as we wrap up our season division previews there, NFL division previews. Look, this was 7 of 8. We've got one more, and then we can start to have some nice fun, give you training camp updates, do some best ball drafts, different things. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe. Like my co-host mentioned, you can find us YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TikTok, Instagram, wherever you want to find us. We hope that you enjoyed talking ball with us. We're hoping to start going live soon there. So we're very excited for that. So look, folks, you know what they say, a lock a day keeps the bookie away. And we hope you have a wonderful week. We will see you next time. What's up, D-Gens? Doc here. As a proud member of the U.S. Army and a lover of football, sometimes those two things cross over on here. But as you probably already know, as a lowly captain, these are just my opinions. These are not opinions that are representative of the entire DoD or the U.S. Army. The same thing goes for any references to any commercial products or hyperlinks. Again, that does not constitute an endorsement from the DoD or the Army. I hope you enjoyed the show, and as always, let it ride, baby.